Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. If you're fascinated by the darker chapters of human history and want to learn how an invisible enemy could, in a very short time, transform the destinies of entire civilizations, then you've come to the perfect place. Today, we're going to talk about the worst pandemics ever to strike humanity. And believe me, the sheer numbers of those who perished can leave you absolutely stunned. Before we launch into this dramatic journey through the ages, please remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends, and be sure to check out our merch. Your support makes it possible for us to continue creating long-form, in-depth content like this. The worst pandemics in human history. Did you know that according to some estimates, the cumulative death toll from various pandemics throughout the centuries could exceed 300 million people? This staggering number isn't just an abstract figure. It represents countless human stories, societal collapses, and sweeping transformations that forever changed the course of history. Pandemics are more than just data. They are narratives of despair, heroic struggles by medical professionals and ordinary people alike, and remarkable human resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. In this extensive video, and the script you're reading right now, we'll examine the most destructive pandemics that have ever afflicted our planet, how they emerged, how they spread, and most importantly, what lessons they still hold for us today. The Black Death, 1347 to 1351. We begin in the medieval era, at a time synonymous with utter chaos and suffering. The Black Death. This was a bubonic plague outbreak caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. It spread like wildfire across Europe, Asia, and North Africa, mainly via rats and fleas. Though people back then had no idea that these creatures were responsible, between 1347 and 1351, the Black Death is estimated to have killed anywhere from 75 to 200 million individuals. In Europe alone, it could have wiped out up to 1/3 of the entire population. If you traveled back in time to witness these events, you'd find deserted cities and villages, with abandoned homes at every turn. Panic and superstition ran rampant, and desperate people often singled out minorities, such as Jews or foreigners, as scapegoats. The devastation was so severe that it altered the social and economic structures of medieval society. A shortage of labor led to higher wages, bolstering the position of peasants, and gradually undermining the traditional feudal system. Moreover, the catastrophe spurred new thinking about hygiene and healthcare, even if those concepts were starkly different from our modern understanding. The Plague of Justinian, 6th century CE. Let's go even further back, to the 6th century CE, when another devastating plague outbreak, known as the Plague of Justinian, erupted, named after Emperor Justinian I, who ruled the Byzantine Empire at its peak. This pandemic is believed to have claimed tens of millions of lives over several waves, which represented a huge portion of the global population at that time. This epidemic struck a crippling blow to the Byzantine Empire, beginning a gradual decline in its power and influence. Trade networks collapsed, armies were decimated, and rival forces took advantage of the empire's weakened state. The Spanish flu, 1918 to 1919. We now jump to the early 20th century, the year 1918. Just as World War I was drawing to a close, an incredibly aggressive strain of influenza appeared, paralyzing the entire world. The Spanish flu. The name stuck primarily because Spain, as a neutral country, had fewer restrictions on media coverage, thus openly reporting on the outbreak. Estimates suggest the Spanish flu killed 50 to possibly 100 million people worldwide. Particularly shocking was the high mortality rate among young adults aged 20 to 40, likely due to a cytokine storm, where an overactive immune response damages vital organs. At that time, no antiviral drugs existed, and antibiotics were not yet discovered, leaving doctors helpless in the face of rapidly spreading infection. Already war-weary populations were pushed to the brink by this new horror, exacerbating economic and social instability. The Spanish flu, however, awakened a deeper appreciation for public health measures and laid the groundwork for modern epidemiology. The death of so many working-age individuals further destabilized already battered nations, increasing fear and uncertainty. Epidemics in Asia and the Third Plague Pandemic, 19th century. In the 19th century, Asia experienced a series of outbreaks, including cholera and plague, which collectively took millions of lives. One such crisis was the so-called Third Plague pandemic, beginning in the mid-19th century and lasting intermittently into the early 20th century. It primarily devastated India and China but spread to ports in Africa and South America. By that time, Europe had slightly better preventive measures, quarantine protocols, improved sanitation. But many Asian regions faced widespread poverty and limited access to healthcare, escalating the mortality rate. At the same time, colonial tensions and economic exploitation hindered the introduction of effective countermeasures. Repeated waves of disease unleashed famine, rebellion, and social unrest, delaying or reshaping economic and societal developments across the region. HIV/AIDS since the 1980s. An entirely different type of pandemic, which unfolds more gradually but over an extended period, is HIV/AIDS. First identified in the early 1980s, HIV spread globally at a significant pace. According to WHO estimates, HIV/AIDS complications have already taken over 40 million lives, with tens of millions more living with the virus. Sub-Saharan Africa has been hit especially hard, as weak healthcare infrastructure and limited education helped fuel the epidemic. Yet, HIV/AIDS is not merely a struggle over life and death. It has also brought about extensive social transformations. The disease changed perceptions of sexuality, spurred significant progress in human rights, and advanced prevention programs. While antiretroviral therapies have allowed infected individuals to live longer and healthier lives, the epidemic is far from over. The HIV/AIDS crisis has highlighted the importance of empathy, public health education, and continuous innovation in medical treatments. COVID-19 since 2019. We cannot discuss pandemics without mentioning COVID-19, which shook the modern world and starkly reminded us that even in the 21st century, we remain vulnerable to widespread outbreaks. Caused by the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus, the disease emerged in late 2019 in Wuhan, China, and spread worldwide within a few months. Advanced global transportation, dense megacities, and deep economic interconnectedness enabled a virus to reach nearly every corner of the Earth. Despite the availability of cutting-edge medical research, genome sequencing, and the rapid development of vaccines, millions of lives were lost. COVID-19 placed healthcare systems under tremendous strain, triggered lockdowns, and drove economies into recession. However, it also accelerated international scientific collaboration and prompted remarkable breakthroughs in areas like mRNA vaccine technology, progress that might help us confront future crises more effectively. The pandemic further spurred massive changes in the workforce, ushering in remote work on a global scale and tightening digital connections around the world. How many people died in pandemics altogether? When you add up the casualties caused by the world's most devastating pandemics, you arrive at a figure exceeding 300 million deaths. This includes infamous disasters like the Black Death, the Plague of Justinian, the Spanish flu, HIV/AIDS, and COVID-19, but also countless smaller epidemics: cholera, smallpox, yellow fever, SARS, MERS, that proved locally catastrophic. Each of these statistics represents a human story. Families broken apart within days, entire cities emptied, and new frameworks for healthcare and economics emerging from the rubble. Though science and technology have come a long way, each new outbreak reminds us that pathogens continue to evolve and surprise even the most prepared societies. Lessons learned from past pandemics, prevention, and preparedness. Every instance discussed confirms that prevention and robust healthcare infrastructure are vastly more cost-effective than managing the aftermath of a massive outbreak. Modern tools such as genetic testing, computer modeling, and contact tracing can significantly slow disease transmission if deployed swiftly and on a large scale. International cooperation. Viruses and bacteria recognize no borders. Effective responses to global pandemics require intense information sharing and coordinated measures across nations. Organizations like the WHO, World Health Organization, or regional bodies like the ECDC, European Center for Disease Prevention and Control, are critical in coordinating research, guidelines, and unified strategies. Solidarity and human compassion. Even in the worst times, there are stories of incredible self-sacrifice and neighborly support. From medieval monasteries where monks tended to plague victims at great personal risk, to modern healthcare workers facing relentless challenges during COVID-19. These accounts show that people can unite in the face of fear and adversity. regardless of political or cultural divides. Scientific advancement. Typically, the greatest tragedies paradoxically accelerate scientific progress. Following the Black Death, interest in medicine and hygiene grew. The Spanish flu catalyzed the field of epidemiology. HIV/AIDS paved the way for breakthroughs in antiviral medication, and COVID-19 propelled mRNA vaccine technologies into mainstream use. With each new crisis, we gain invaluable knowledge that can protect us in the future. Adaptation and social change. Major pandemics often reshape the socio-political and economic order. The Black Death undermined the feudal system. The Spanish flu promoted more transparent communication and strengthened healthcare. HIV/AIDS sparked dialogue on human rights and sexual education, while COVID-19 sped up digital transformation in workplaces and education worldwide. Pandemics stand out as some of the most dramatic events in human history. Realizing that the medieval plague could erase 1/3 of Europe's population in just a few years, or that COVID-19 rocked our modern world despite all our scientific achievements, highlights the awesome and unpredictable forces that still shape our civilization. We are not, however, entirely powerless. By studying the past, we can invest in research, education, infrastructure, and strong bonds of solidarity to help us weather whatever comes next. From the Black Death to COVID-19, each pandemic reminds us that no matter how advanced our technology or how interconnected our globe, we still lack absolute protection against virulent pathogens. But that realization should motivate us to actively fortify ourselves, supporting medical innovation, planning for crises, and fostering cross-border collaboration. That's how we can avoid repeating the darkest scenarios and ultimately save countless lives. If you found this extensive, dramatic overview of the worst pandemics in human history engaging, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends on social media. Only through your support can we continue to produce long, detailed materials filled with fascinating facts and broader context. And don't forget to check out our merch, where you can support us financially while picking up unique items to remind you that even in the face of dire challenges, there's always something to learn from history. We'd love for you to leave a comment as well. Which pandemic shocked you the most? Do you think an even more serious global health crisis could be on the horizon? We're eager to hear your thoughts and may feature them in our next video. Thank you for sticking with us to the very end. Remember, the past can be our greatest teacher, whether it's about devastating pandemics, groundbreaking scientific discoveries, or the social evolution that emerges in the aftermath. Stay tuned for more videos where we'll delve into the most riveting and sometimes the darkest episodes from world history.